been quite a busy morning, and thank you so much for staying with us here on Morning Live. Now, the WOZA Awards, intended to celebrate South African women in law, will be launched in February next year, and it will be the first of its kind for the legal industry. The awards will recognize the dedication, achievements, and the contributions of females in the legal sector, and all proceeds made at the awards will go towards the establishment of South Africa's very first Women-in-Law Leadership and Innovation Academy, or WOILA. So to chat to us about these initiatives, we are joined from our Sea Point studios now by Rehana Khan Parker, I should say, and she's there with that beautiful backdrop in Cape Town. Good morning, Rehana.
Good morning from a beautiful Cape Town.
Indeed it is. Now, Rehana, first and foremost, what was the inspiration between the WOZA Awards?
Very simple. I attended a conference fairly recently, in fact, the BRICS Legal Summit, and I could count the amount of women in the room. And that gave birth to the idea of creating a platform for women.
So WOZA, why WOZA? What does it mean? What does it stand for?
It was quite an easy task to come up with a name, because I wanted to use women, I wanted to use South Africa, and I wanted to use a indigenous word. And I thought WOZA being perfect, meaning come along, come aboard. And of course, it also stands for Women from South Africa, ZA being the usual sort of tag that one puts for South Africa. And I thought that WOZA would just be a perfect fit, and it just went well. And that's how the name came about.
And speaking of women in South Africa, and especially pertaining to the legal fraternity, do you think that women get sufficient recognition?
No, of course not. If it was so, then I would not be thinking of an awards program dedicated specifically to women. I had felt that it was necessary to bring together the change makers, the trailblazers, the influencers and the key decision makers in the legal fraternity, to unite them to establish one single forum where we can then address the challenges that women face as female legal practitioners. Yes, there isn't enough recognition. There are various organizations, including the old structures such as the law societies, that would have awards programs, but there are no specific law awards programs dedicated to women in law alone across all the sectors. And here I'm talking about the private sector, the government sector, corporate sector, as well as NGOs. There's a void.
So speaking of the challenges, what are some of the challenges that female legal practitioners face?
You will notice that if one attends a typical law conference, or if you look in the courtroom, you would typically see senior counsel being men and the junior counsel being women. Although it is rising, the landscape is changing, but not enough is being done in the boardroom, not enough is being done in the private sector, not enough is done, I believe, even at government, to ensure that women get the necessary recognition. So the recognitions that do come out, that one sees at conferences, the people in the forefront that would be leading the seminars, for example, or the attendees, would be largely male. And I'm saying, what has happened to all our female graduates who graduate from universities? And the numbers by far exceed the men. And we know that in government, in the private sector, in the corporate world, there are many women that are tucked away in their corners. And I thought that the WOZA would tease out those women that go unnoticed. And it gives them the platform to be recognized. And then, of course, the spin-off of highlighting the celebrations of women in the industry would be to create a completely new platform for women in leadership, but in law. There are many courses available for women in leadership and mentorship, but nothing relating to law. So I'm hoping that the WOILA Academy would develop young women, mature women, the middle-aged women as well, into leadership positions and to be recognized. It is often felt that women are too soft because of their femininity and are not able to do the job. However, you don't need to be aggressive in the boardroom to get the job done, because we know that it's often the women behind the scenes that do the work. So I'm hoping that this platform would go far in recognizing women in their spaces, irrespective of where they are.
Just a final question, Rehana. What are some of the categories that you will be recognizing people in?
Thank you for asking me that question. Because when I sat and I looked at what happens internationally, I looked at the various categories and I thought South Africa needs to be unique, because we have a large contingent of single practitioners, one woman practices, where it's just one, or it's a small partnership of two partners, for example. Or on the other hand, you've got the big firms with probably 5 or more female practitioners. So I had to develop an awards program that spoke to both, so that the woman in the single practice does not go unrecognized, but of course the woman in the bigger practice or the bigger corporates or at the bank or in government also gets the recognition. So I've got various awards. I'm excited to announce that I've also created new awards. Besides the Human Rights Award, of course, goes without saying. It goes with the flavor of being South African. But there are other industries that I think that is largely overlooked in the legal industry, and that is women in IT and law. That is a prime example. So when I, for example, decided to do this, I thought, who do I know that can do my IT for this pioneering process? I couldn't find anyone in law, and I had to turn to a Mushfika Samodin, who I know is excellent at IT. So there is one example of an industry where we have not tapped into. So I am hoping that this will tease out other sectors within the industry that have not come to the forefront. We know that the traditional awards would go to the best female lawyer, the best corporate lawyer, as well as human rights. But I am looking to tease out those other little categories. The best mediator, for example. Yeah. So, for example, in government often gets the state attorneys, the attorneys within their office often get overlooked, yet they do a phenomenal job, whether it's in refugee law or not.
Yeah. Rehana, I tell you, it sounds very exciting, and what we will do is obviously speak to you closer to the time of those awards. But thanks to Rehana Parker talking to us about the Women in Law Leadership and Innovation WOILA Academy, as well as the WOZA Awards to celebrate women in the law industry, and that will take place in February. And we will, of course, look into that a little closer to the time when that comes around, because she makes a valid point. You know, if you're a young lady sitting there and you're going to university next year to study law, you listen to the challenges that women still face, and you know, these are things that you need to wrap your head around. So it's good that women are indeed taking a stance as well in terms of giving recognition amongst themselves for jobs well done.